if you go to an art teacher and they can paint a good painting, maybe they're worth listening to, okay? But what the hell is a non-duality teacher painting? It's a manufactured performance on stage. That's absolutely how I would think about it, that culturally, we need to get rid of this kind of harshness and really think about how we think about exploring these inner states of consciousness, and maybe taking a few lessons from people who you would admire in other areas. So I'll just pause there for a second, Jessica.
What's so unique here when we say, you could be getting scammed by somebody is it sets up truth that can't be falsified by the mind. It's something you have to experience, and that once you experience it, you'll know it's true. And then you're pointed to have this experience, which is a real way of perceiving reality. But the moment that you have that experience that matches what they're describing, then it's, aha, it's the truth. And I think you and I talked about that, how that there's something, there's a blind spot there in terms of having been set up to have a specific experience, but also having been fed this dogmatic conclusion from the beginning that's the only one that can be accepted. So if you were to have the same experience and come away with a different conclusion, you'd be wrong and you wouldn't have realized the truth.
And it's tempting for me to go there. I could say about like the big love experiences I had that, it felt like I was immersed in something that was bigger than the universe. Okay, so there could be a temptation to come back and say, aha, I actually have had the absolute truth. How about that? But I think people that generally make truth claims are displaying an inability to see how they could be wrong. And the other thing I'd say about it is, when have you ever known anyone who made a claim to have the absolute truth about anything in any area to be more functional for making that claim? When has it ever not made someone dogmatic and an awful person to listen to and be around? So I don't think, even if they're right, maybe you should just interject even some false humility. Just pretend to be humble, right?
It's fascinating to me that I've gotten to this point where I'm actually less, maybe it's not surprising to say, but that I'm less trusting and very turned off by anyone or any paradigm or set of teachings that makes claims about ultimate truth. And it just seems to be like, what seems so glaring to me now is like this obsession with knowing this ultimate unfalsifiable truth that, to me, there's the dogma of it, there is an authoritarian aspect, but there's that lack of open-mindedness, like you said, that maybe something else can, or maybe that there's these experiences are real, maybe there's a different interpretation. That's so many people are seeking, of course, and it's understandable. People want the truth. I wanted that. We don't want uncertainty, but there's something we really lose, even if we're going to go with the playfulness theme about playfully exploring reality and being open to the evolution of your relationship with spirituality and the nature of reality that gets lost when you think that you've discovered the final truth.
In any other field of human endeavor, like someone who claims to have found the truth about something and cannot take any kind of criticism of their position, it's a sign of like a fragile ego. You could tell me that non-duality is the one area of human endeavor where that does not apply, and all the people who have what seems like certainty addiction are actually very healthy in their minds. But I don't believe that. It just seems to me that what's playing out is the same psychological patterns around truth claims in every other field of human endeavor. That seems to be the more sort of parsimonious explanation for it. Yeah, let me say, maybe they're right. Okay, I can see the compelling levels of it, but all I would put to them is, like, what effect is it having on you? This idea that you have absolute truth. Are your human relations going better? Are you a better communicator of ideas? Are you more human and compassionate because you believe you have the absolute truth? Or does it take you away from that? That just, like, people can answer that question for themselves. And good for them. So the idea that, which I internalized, that having a boundary is as important as being willing to push yourself. And you're probably the best person to judge that, and just have a feel into yourself. And you're not going to get a medal for pushing yourself too hard and for this ultimately being a negative experience for you. Now, this does leave open the question, Jessica, is like, no matter how good you make your map, there's always going to be a problem in it somewhere. And the territory of navigating these deep aspects of consciousness and all this, that might just be difficult territory. And depending what your life has been like, if you've had a traumatic life, then it is going to be difficult territory. And there can be ultimately no way around that, which is where I think we arrive at the value of your work, and where you ask me very pointed questions about what I do, which with some reluctance, I must say, I have to admit, okay, yeah, maybe I am a little bit flippant there. Maybe I do, because of my own experience ultimately being good. Maybe I'm not quite cautious enough about the kind of states I would take people into without knowing not without knowing who they are, but maybe I don't have quite the requisite caution. I'm not saying I don't, right? But this is what the value of your work is, to make someone like me reflect on that.
Yeah. It's great to hear that. There was something that I wanted to go back to because that's really important, which is being in a community, in a spiritual community or environment where people are not judged and pressured and bullied into doing things that they're hesitant to do or don't feel comfortable doing. And it's turned into that's your ego that doesn't want to die, and that you need to ignore what it's saying and jump off the ledge or whatever it is. And this I found to be one of the up there on the kind of range of some of the most toxic elements that I see in among a lot of the popular teachers, events that you go to, and the ways that people are spoken to, that it's always like, don't listen to the voice in your head or any boundaries that are coming up, that all that stuff is the ego prison and that kind of thing. And so it's really good to hear you say that
Well,
and share that that's not the way that, that it.
yeah. So I'd like to comment on that actually, because you don't have a boundary, and you're still letting someone else push you into this deep state in a way that doesn't feel right to you, or letting you push into. It could be something else, like in a therapeutic setting. It could be revealing too much in a group, or looking into your psyche too much. And if you don't have a boundary of that, maybe it works this time, but the next time you could go splat.
What was being taught was like, if you want freedom bad enough, or if you want this bad enough, then you'll be willing to throw all your caution to the wind and jump off the ledge now, or it'll be, if you're suffering badly enough, you'll make the ultimate sacrifice. And so much of that sort of, like you were saying, oh, there's no medals for pushing yourself. However, sadly, in a lot of those non-dual communities and teachings, it's presented as if there is a medal for that. The ones that are not faint of heart and all that, like, it really sets up this whole sort of, yeah, again, like that pressure to be the spiritual warrior and the one
Yeah.
who was willing to fall on their own sword. And that's something I fell into quite a bit too. That was like, if I want to know this badly enough, or prove to myself how bad I want to be free from suffering, and to ignore the voices in my head. There weren't voices in my head telling me that I didn't want to do it. I was totally on board with it.
And I suspect, if I look at myself and my own harshness, it was me that was pushing me to be harsher. And then I suppose reading books
Yeah.
that complemented that. I think there's a kind of self-loathing underneath it, a kind of dislike of oneself, and I want to punish oneself, and like boot camp style. Okay, but I suppose there's like fitness programs like in the military or something, which are very harsh. But if you go to the gym and your fitness instructor overloads the bar or something on your first day, you don't end up strong. You end up with broken
Keep
ribs.
going.
Are you just going to tear your muscles? And I think these kind of analogies to something more physical and concrete kind of work, right? Because it's only a really bad fitness instructor that pushes their student too hard and damages them, and they don't make progress overall. And I think it's the same in the psychological world, and I think it's the same in the non-dual spirituality world. If like people who don't really know what they're doing employ harshness, and that they replicate that they make up for a lack of skill and a lack of human empathy through pushing hard.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're completely right on that. So I should have mentioned this earlier. I have a bit of a hard stop on the hour. We've got like 8 minutes or so. We can always, if we want to keep going, we can always do a follow-up and add more to it.
I'm sure I'd love to do more, but I actually think this is quite a good place,
Cool.
Jessica. I think it's quite a
Is nice.
spot.
Well, is there any particular way that you feel compelled for us to wrap it up?
No, I'll just say thank you very much for. I don't know if I've ever done such an extensive biographical interview before, so thank you for the opportunity for me to talk about myself for an hour and a
I'm
half. It's been great. Yeah.
honored, and I appreciate very much your nuances. And there's things that we disagree on, but we have quite a lot of common ground that we've discovered and that we're continuing to uncover. And I just really appreciate all of the nuance here, and that fits in quite well with the glorious both and.
Yeah, thank you, Jessica. I love your work and what